I am here today with Thomas Altman, who's co-founder of Tasio. Tasio is a member retention analytics platform. Now, I got to meet Thomas in Chicago at AMS Fest this summer, and we have been talking now ever since. I'm fascinated by what they do, fascinated by the technology, and Thomas, of course, is just a tremendously likable person. And since we're in the middle of a membership renewal series on 1 Minute YM, I thought it'd be fun for you guys to hear from Thomas and, maybe get the imagination going. I know for me, it already has. I've got him and their product listed for some of our clients and work we're doing. But I thought, let's introduce you to Thomas and let's have a conversation. So with that, Thomas, thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that kind introduction. It's been great getting to know you as well. Part of the best part of AMS Fest was this connection. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to people with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and let's dive right in because I know we got to step through. You got a bunch of stuff to do. I do, and all of our viewers do as well. What is data-driven engagement outreach, and what can our YM clients do today?
Yeah, so it's all based in this concept that I think most people would be familiar with around engagement scoring. And if you think through traditional engagement scoring, what tends to happen is a group of membership director gets in a room with the event person, with the communications person, with the advocacy person. And then everybody kind of argues around oh, we should score event attendance with 10 points and we should score this webinar viewing with 1 point. And people kind of argue over that. They arrive at some conclusion around what an engagement score is, and then it sits there. And no one knows what to do with it. And it turns out to not be very effective because it wasn't really based on some sort of outside data. So what data-driven engagement scoring does, it actually says, let's let the data tell us what matters for our engagement score. And the way this works, and the way I think YM and YM people, what would I say there? YM owners, I don't know. But
Sure, yeah.
people who have YM could use this is you could start looking at different behaviors people have around sort of the transactional aspects of the way they interact with the organization. Meaning you can count up the number of webinars that they attended in the previous 12 months before the renewal period. You can count the number of white papers they may have downloaded, whether or not they served on a committee, and create this sort of very simple but wide data set, and then start looking at, okay, if somebody attended the annual conference, how likely were those people to renew versus not? If somebody, made 3 non-dues purchases, were they more or less likely than somebody who made 1 or 0? And you can start finding out how much each of these actual behaviors matter, and then start, and this is the important part, once you have a concrete understanding of what behaviors actually matter towards renewal, you can then start reaching out to those people. Like if you find that the jump between doing 2 and 3 non-dues purchases, which is an experience I had, goes from a 65% renewal rate to an 80% renewal rate, you find everybody with 2, purchases, non-dues purchases in the past year, and you sort of lean into them a little bit, saying, hey, we noticed you bought these couple of things. Are you interested in something else that we're offering, another webinar, or perhaps this, subscription to this journal, or whatever it might be. So
Sure.
that's really what it is really digging into the data so that you can be more targeted and specific with the outreach.
So you've got me thinking about a couple of things. One is that, some of our clients, do an amazing job of trying to collect all their data together. They've got a spreadsheet where they're ranking, but it is a lot of work. In fact, one of our clients who I know is pretty sophisticated in their thinking, they say they can do it about once a quarter. And once a quarter doesn't seem like enough to me, but it's better than nothing. How does the Tasio approach support, this engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. So once you have these data sources identified, it actually, because it's transactional data, it's something you really can do with a pivot table. It's something that if you export it to Excel, and if you knew how to use a pivot table, and then if you don't, it's easy to learn. On a monthly basis, you just grab everything that happened in the past 12 months. You could focus just on one simple thing, like give me the orders, all of the orders we had in the past 12 months with sort of the amount that was spent, the date it happened, in the category of the product that was purchased, and create a pivot table around who bought what, how much of it over the past 12 months. And that's a very simple thing that you could do on an ongoing basis. I would say quarterly is better than nothing. It's certainly better than yearly. Monthly seems to be the sweet spot. Weekly, I've played with, if you started exporting, doing all this stuff weekly, very few associations have data that changes that frequently, that you'd get meaningful difference week to week. Monthly seems to be the sweet spot. You would get enough of a meaningful difference that's if you can start doing that type of analysis on a monthly basis, that's the way to go.
Cool. Interesting. So one of the things that I'm thinking about, from our conversations is that the foundational underpinnings of the Tasio platform is, an AI-driven approach to, in a sense, your models and your modeling, and then how you reach out. What's your sense of how AI is being used in the association space? And how does Tasio use AI
Yeah.
to make us smarter in our engagement scoring?
Yeah, the association space is very much kind of lagging behind industries as a whole. And I think a lot of that is a lack of awareness around what can be done. So when people hear AI, a lot of them think some sort of maybe futuristic or requires a highly technical skill set. When the truth is, a lot of these tools have been developed and are just ready for use. So the way that we apply it is many people have seen some of these content writing AIs out there where you provided a prompt, say, hey, write me a short story about this, and then
Right.
you write a short story, right? Well, you can actually what's called train some of these models with very specific inputs. So instead of saying, hey, write me a short story about, a bear that eats a picnic in the woods, you could say, hey, write me an outreach letter to a person with this profile. They're they're a member in their first year. They bought this product, in the last 6 months, and they watched this webinar. Write an email that's designed to re-engage them, and it will craft a very tailored specific email to this person that really you're just feeding in with data that's already in your AMS. You didn't have to do this high level of research or write, really anything. You can go back and
Mhm.
edit. But finding applications like that is a way we found it's really effective. It shortens the throughput. You can contact way, way, way more people with much, much, much more relevant information that then gets them to re-engage in a way that will eventually lead
Mhm.
to a renewal.
What's the impact on, like, say, staff team savings? Let alone helping staff do this who had never done it before.
Right, absolutely. So a lot of associations either have an onboarding process where they have some sort of direct, member to member outreach, or staff to like new member outreach where they actually do want to contact them one-on-one. And what it what in those organizations that have that, it allows you to be a little bit more specific about who you're contacting. So first, you're going to contact the AI can help you understand who's at risk, right? So you're going to spend your time contacting to those at risk people first, and not spending your time contacting people that are doing all the things that have them set up for renewal anyway, right?
Mhm.
So it allows you to spend more time with the people that need the more time, right? So I think that's the first pass. The second is it allows you to go through that list quicker, right? So because whereas you might, as a human researcher, have to go into somebody's, record, look up what they've researched recently, look up other information about them that might or might not be in the AMS. You could spend hours doing that for one person just to prep for a phone call, whereas the AI could do that, for each person in under 5 seconds and give you a list of talking points and things you might want to reach out to them about that would be
Wow.
relevant to them. Yeah.
Well, that to me is, we think about a lot of our clients are smaller staffed associations, and even our bigger ones. I mean, they've got a million things to do. And the fact that they probably would never even contemplate taking the time to do that,
Yeah.
that then the AI can do, and then they're executing on those messages.
Exactly, and I think that's where I've been seeing the biggest value add is I prefer to work with smaller organizations because that's where the incremental like benefit is that's where the impact is the highest actually,
Mhm.
because some of these multi-million member organizations, they probably have a team of PhD researchers already doing that, but it's those sort of resource constrained medium
Mhm.
to small sized associations, a couple thousand members, that the membership director is also like running the events and most of the communications and
Yep.
also managing the AMS, right? That person doesn't have the time to do that one-on-one outreach. But if you could carve off a small section of those new members or recent members that are at risk and say, hey, these are 3 people you need to talk to today, and this is the messaging that would re-engage them, that
Sure.
becomes a much more actionable set of items where that person can pick up the phone or or send the email that's already written for them after proofreading it, right? That becomes much easier because you have AI and you have predictive analytics
Mhm.
supporting that underlying process.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I know we're starting to bump up against our time, and you and I, we can chat and have chatted for hours.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions. And all you can say is to our folks, the 1 Minute YM folks, let us know if you'd like an introduction to Thomas. Or you can, of course, Google him yourself. Friendly guy. We're happy to make a very warm introduction and pass on any information we can. But thank you, Thomas, for the time today. And everyone else, we'll see you later.
Yeah. Yes, it's been great. Thank you for your time too. It's been fun.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, everybody, have a great day. Bye-bye.